Mr. Chairman, let me apologize up front for this metaphor I'm about to use. I know it will insult the two vegans on the committee, me and Senator Cruz. But I believe...
Point of personal privilege.
Oh, I'm sorry, Senator
It may
Cruz.
be one step below the Houston Astros thing.
I just want the people of Texas to know the truth. He is a closet vegan. I recognize, Mr. Chairman, that this goose is pretty much cooked. And I love the body postures of all of us around when people are talking and when people are saying things very original, as Mr. Kennedy just said. Folks look up and listen, and when folks are repeating what others consider to be the routine partisan posturing, I see lots of heads go down to the cell phones. So let me try not to do anything routine with the hope that my colleagues will listen to me. First of all, just with the hearing, I do think some of the things that you said earlier are right. This was a hearing conducted with decorum and professionalism. I think that's something I think all of us can at least agree to. We had some criticisms going back and forth. I found things that were troubling to me during this hearing. I tried to elicit in both private conversation and in the hearing, just conversations about what I think is one of the issues that we don't speak enough about in the United States of America, which are issues of race. I have been extremely proud of the fact that we are a Senate now that has more blacks serving on it than at any time in history, and I've been really grateful to watch my Senate colleagues, often on the floor of the Senate, my colleague Tim Scott, speak about the truth about race, and literally the last time I saw him do it, get applause from his Republican colleagues about his experiences. A United States Senator, and I have my own, who has had experiences of the Capitol Police here that have been stunning, I think, to many of my colleagues to recognize this goes on. And here we are in the backdrop of what I think is, and somebody can correct me or fact check me, what I think is the largest period of demonstrations in the history of the United States, greater than any in the civil rights movement, of millions of Americans, often in predominantly, if not all, white towns, coming out to protest issues of race. And I was surprised that in this backdrop, issues of race are so important to the Supreme Court that we had a nominee who couldn't even talk to a law review article that they wrote. And that's not, and I heard Senator Kennedy ask her yesterday, which made me smile, as you often do, my friend, ask her if she's a racist. Clearly, she's not a racist, nor is anybody who is serving in this committee. But it's not out of the bounds to ask questions about this, being that in the lifetime of my family, there have been members who've been affected by Supreme Court decisions in pretty profound ways. And it's issues that are going to continue to come up. I did find it also surprising. That's fair. Thank you, sir. And I did find it surprising that this conversation, and again, I'm new to this committee, and this conversation about does a nominee answer questions that reflect their philosophy. I thought there were a lot of questions that were inbounds that she refused to answer. And I think that is the erosion of precedent that's going to continue in this committee. We are now heading to a period where the instructions that every Supreme Court nominee is going to get is just to not answer things, like to not being able to answer whether you believe in the peaceful transfer of power. I just found that stunning. I really did. I mean, I don't think we could ask anybody in the United States Senate, House members, high school history teachers, if they don't think that that's something somebody should do. So I found that surprising. But I'm not here to rehash comments I made in my opening about why I think this is wrong to do this. What I'd rather do, and Chairman, I think you're probably going to send me a note or flowers, but tomorrow will be the 7-year date to the date of when I got elected to be in the United States Senate. And thank you, Senator Kennedy. Maybe you'll be the only one that marks.
Well, just a congratulations be sufficient.
I appreciate that.
I mean that. And before you go on, this is pretty contentious time, and Twitter's blocking a story about Biden and the world's turning sideways and all. I'm going to talk about that in a minute, Senator Cruz. But there would be no First Steps Act if Senator Booker, at a very crucial point in time, decided to find common ground. If they ever write the history of that bill, all attest to the fact that when it was about to fall apart, you kept it together. You kept your eye on the prize. I just wanted to say that.
And I'm going to attest to the fact that you and other colleagues just yesterday, after I did talk about race, had a conversation with me about the work that we can still do together on those issues. I came to the Senate, people said it was impossible for us to pass at least some of the legislation that Dick Durbin on our side really led to get things done. I'm really proud of some of the work we've done in this committee. So I just want to actually talk about that moment I came to the United States Senate. I was elected on the 16th. My dad had just died 6 days earlier. And then I came down here grieving. My staff knew right before Vice President Joe Biden swore me in to take me over to see John Lewis, which was one of the more moving moments of my life. And my mom, in tears, walks me to be sworn in on the floor of the Senate, which was Halloween, October 31st. Now, what happened about a week later was the rules of the Senate were changed, which I've heard a lot about from colleagues about breaking the Senate. Imagine me, and again, I literally was so a little bit naive to the functioning of the Senate, and this is not an exaggeration, it's the truth. I got sworn in and we had a vote, and I didn't know how to vote. I thought there was a button you pressed. I'm looking around for it, and Menendez has to tell me, just raise your hand and say aye. And so next thing you know, I have senators coming to me to lobby me about changing a rule that surprised me because the word they were using was nuclear option. And so that got my attention. Why the heck are we doing something called the nuclear option? I mean, I thought I was going to be coming here to talk about treaties to try to prevent nuclear proliferation or nuclear catastrophe. And I had senators who I really respect, people I saw as statesmen and women, coming to me and explaining to me about what they saw was the loggerhead, the chokehold that Leader McConnell was putting on the ability of Senator Obama to put executive positions and judges on. Now, I just recently heard Mitch McConnell brag about that he was able to choke the number of judges that Obama was able to put on to give President Trump a historic number of vacancies to fill. Now, I'm not actually bringing this up as a point of argument because I've listened to this hashed out, both sides claiming injury and claiming harm in this, whatever the debate is. I believe I did the right thing with my vote. But I think I have heard the grace on both sides in private conversations with people telling me that this body as a Senate and telling me that this committee is terribly broken and remarked to me that we are tumbling towards a very bad reality. And so that's what concerns me right now in this moment, that this is another moment where we are, as an institution, eroding our norms to the point that we all are bemoaning it. Everybody, I have heard on both sides of the aisle, bemoaning it. But this isn't happening in an isolated vacuum. It's not. It's happening in a time of terrible crisis for our country.